One of the best ways to find bugs in your code before it gets released to production is by running the actual code and simulating how customers will really behave. So that's easier said than done because typically any of these types of complex applications have multiple different services and databases that all have to be kept in sync. I've got a simple example here with just 3-4 components, but if you've got something a lot more complicated, 30 or 40 components, you can't run them all on your own machine. So what you want to do is break the problem down into smaller parts. By using a tool like Proxymock, which is a free tool, you can record the interactions between some of the components and then run a subset so that you can run through that and test your code much more thoroughly. I'm going to take you through a full example here. This is a live demo app that you can see on my GitHub repo. All these instructions are available online. We've got a browser interface into a React UI, makes calls to a backend API written in Go, and the data ultimately is stored in Postgres. So we're going to set up different recorders here to capture this traffic and then run it as mock scenarios. There are some prerequisites like getting these programming languages and database installed. I've already done all of that work. So I'm going to start by jumping in and actually doing the first scenario here, which is recording between the React code and the Go code. You'll see in the instructions here that there are a couple of different options. One is you can run the commands. The other is you can use Claude Code to do the work for you. In this case, I'm going to run all the commands just to make sure I don't, I like before I automate things to run through manually so I understand actually what I'm working with. So we're going to start with the core service and run that. So I've got one terminal going. It's running the Go code. Now let me spin up another terminal. Here we're going to run Proxymock. Again, Proxymock can be downloaded for free, and it's got built-in commands to record mock, view the data, that kind of thing. Whenever you run the recorder, you should get a directory like you see here. So a directory has been created, and the new data will be written in there. Now we're going to open a third terminal window, and we're going to run the React code. And this is using Vite. So we're telling Vite to use a different port for the backend API. So that's how we're kind of shimming in the Proxymock. All right, now all three are running: the core API, the Proxymock recorder, and the React code. So let's go here to our browser. Let me just make sure I refresh and that everything is running. Now I'm going to log in. The user is admin@example.com. The password is password. You can add more users and do different things if you want. So I've got it all set up with a blank database. Nothing is set up yet. So there's no accounts, contacts, or opportunities. Let's go make a new account. So we'll make one called account 1, and it is in the tech industry, and the website is account1.com. So you don't have to fill everything in. I've got a new account created. Let's make a second account. So account 2 is bank and account2.com. Okay, great. So we've added a couple of calls. We should see here Proxymock has started to pick up some of these calls. Each one of these is written as a markdown file, so I can see the exact call. This is a GET request. Here is the post for creating our new account. You can actually see the data we filled in the form. We've picked it up from the API tier here. Okay, great. Let me go back to the account list, make sure I see the accounts in the home page. Shows there's 2 accounts. That looks good. So we've done a quick recording here. Going back to the instructions, so let me flip to this view, which is a little nicer to look at. So we generated traffic. Now let's go ahead and stop everything. So we're stopping all 3 components. And now we're going to flip over to actually running the mock. So when we run the mock, we're just going to run the browser and the React code and Proxymock. We're not going to run the core service. We don't need the database. So I'll actually trash can the core service here. And now we've just got 2 windows, one for Proxymock, one for the front end. So again, there's instructions if you want to use Claude Code, but in our case, we are going to use Proxymock. Every time you run, it'll create a new timestamp. So don't grab that timestamp, just hit tab and it should auto-complete, and then we can grab the rest of these commands. We're going to use this map command, which will map the port to the local backend API. Okay, so the mock server is up and running, and we're already in front end. We actually already ran that export, so we're just going to run make start. So we're just restarting the front end so we know everything is fresh. Let's make sure we refresh here. Admin at example.com and password. Now if you remember, we had 2 user accounts. Now when we log in, we're back to 0 because that was the condition of the environment when we first logged in. And we can actually run through our test scenario here. Count 1, and we got a good response. That application returned what we expected. We can run account 2, which is bank, and create that one. Check out the account list. We now have 2 accounts. Check out the dashboard. So the exciting and interesting thing here is I can actually test my React code. I don't even need the back end. You didn't see me spin up an editor and write a bunch of code. This is all done through the mock interface, and we can see the results here that the mocks, this is the result, basically the answer showing us that the mock was working. So this was a pretty simple example here. I want to step it up a notch and show you how we can do this with something a little more complicated with the Postgres data. So I'm going to just go ahead and close all my terminal windows because we're going to start over with the database mocking. So scrolling down here, the database mocking is a little more involved because we're going to actually record on 2 sides. So we're going to record the calls between the front end and the Go code, but we're also going to record from the Go code to the back end. And in the end, what it's going to let us do is test this Go code without needing to run the front end and without needing to do any type of browser testing or anything like that. So we're going to go through the same process again of setting up a couple terminal windows. So we're starting Proxymock first because one of the first things the database does, even when it starts up, is to connect to the database. So, one of the first things the API tier does is to talk to the database. So we need Proxymock running before anything else. Now we run the app. Again, if you look, the recording, we already got calls. The database is a little chattier, a little noisier, with more calls being made. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to run the front end. And come in here to demo. Now, this time we flip back to the database, so we should see those 2 accounts are there again because we flip back to using the real database. Yeah, so we do have those 2 accounts, and we can make one new account, account 3, which is in it's a restaurant, account3.com. Okay, great. So now if we go to the overall account list, we've got 3 accounts. The dashboard shows that we have 3. And my guess is our Proxymock data will have a lot of information in here. So I'm going to show you one other way to see the data if you don't want to look at the files individually, is we have an inspect command. You just give it the name where you want to pick the data up from. So we want to pick the data up from the recorded database interactions, and you can see here this is why it's a little noisier. It's because we see there is a bind and there's a prepare statement, a describe, a bind, and actually there's some initialization that happens at the beginning as well. So you can see there's a mix in here of the API calls happening at the same time as the database calls. This helps you get an idea of the timing. So when you go to the home page, it gets the list of accounts. And then here's the query for accounts. Here's the post where it's creating accounts. And then all of a sudden it checks to see if that's already there. So again, you can actually click into any one of these, see what's in the request. This is us inserting the data into into the database, and then how the database responds. So a lot of times you're doing an insert, you don't get an interesting response. But if you do a select, you should get an interesting response. So if you do a select on this execute prepared statement, the response body has the details about account 3 that we added. These blanks are an indication of probably null values from the database, which is pretty normal. Okay, so we're nearly done here with this demo, but we've already seen we can record and mock HTTP interactions, but now we want to go and mock the database, so we don't have to run the database at all if we don't want. And we might want to have a little test driver so we can replay those couple of recorded transactions pretty easy. So let me make sure everything is turned off. Okay, we're actually not going to use the front end in this one. So we're going to start first by running Proxymock. So we've got to tell it which recording to use. We want to use the database recording, and then we've got that same map command where we map the Postgres port across to a different port. Okay, so that's running. Now we go to the core service, and again, kind of like before, we already did the CD and the export, so we just have to say make run. And already it started talking to the database. Because remember, as soon as it starts up, we should see actually in the results in our mock database call, we've already got a bunch of messages. As soon as it initializes, it talks to the database, which is cool. And we didn't get any errors or anything like that, which is a good sign. And then we'll open our third window, and here we're going to run the replay. This is us pretending to do all the browser interactions. We don't have to click through the browser. We can actually just replay the API calls. So here the flag's a little bit different. We say where is the backend running, and then where do we want the output results to go. I'm just copying and pasting these right out of these instructions. So this will spin up a little test client, and however much data is in there, it will rerun all of those interactions. And actually we can see here that there are 6 different endpoints, 6 different total calls that got run. The get accounts got called twice, but we've got a good response. Nothing failed, no status code mismatches. We play one more time so I can take a look at the results here. So there's a couple of different ways of viewing this data. If you want more detailed data, you can output this in JSON format. And again, you can also run the Proxymock inspect command even on the traffic that's been replayed. So you just tell it which result you want to look at. So we'll go to Proxymock results, and you can see I've done this a couple times, so I want the very last one. And here I can see now I've got a little bit more detail on the exact calls that were sent in. So doing the login, getting the list of accounts and things like that. But posting and creating an account and getting this 201 status code, that's good. 201 means created. And that means our mock is working properly because it lets you create that and it doesn't say, oh, it's already existing in the database. So by using mocks, you get this advantage that you're able to really easily isolate components from each other. So at the bottom of the instructions here is a little bit more kind of summary of what we did, the original ports that were used, and then we just put a 1 in front of those for the mock port. We were able to mock HTTP calls. We were able to mock database calls and isolate our components from each other. And the other thing is all this data is in Markdown format and JSON format, which are very easy for AI tools to use. You may have noticed there was instructions. What if you're using Claude Code? How do I want to use the data? So Claude can go and read these files as well and diagnose if you're getting an error or an unexpected response. So please feel free to check out Proxymock. We also have a community that you can join. If you've got questions about this demo app or any questions about Proxymock in particular, please feel free to join. It is slack.speedscale.com. It's a free to join community, and like I said, Proxymock is a free tool for local desktop use. Thank you very much.